Hello. My birthday. Yeah, it's like 3 in the morning. Can't really sleep. Been thinking about a lot of stuff. So I just thought I would share a perspective on something. And that's the idea of truth versus lies and how we approach or treat people that are able to believe lies so easily. And I think we need to be really careful here because, like, the way that, and it honestly, this frustrates me with a lot of my friends on the left sometimes. I mean, I get the impulse, of course, but what frustrates me is the notion that we can reduce somebody believing a lie to as simple a notion of, like, you know, as if it's like you're choosing an onion versus an everything bagel in the morning, instead of it being the result of a system of how people intake information and how propaganda spreads, and how that almost necessitates lies not even being believed, but like then doubling down, tripling down, not being able to back off that position. Because it's an emotional position. It's not what we would call a rational or logical decision, right, or a position. A lot of it I think about in parts with the internal family systems idea and the idea that we're not all one thing, or we're not all one part. So if I were to say to you 2 + 2 = 4, and you say no, 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4, the idea that all of you believes that and is making that choice, it's silly, right? Like, of course not all of that person believes that. It's not like they've gone through their lives believing that 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4. I think, you know, most of them, they have very strong parts underneath that do know full well that 2 + 2 = 4. But the parts that don't believe that and now have to disavow that are these calcified, defensive, propagandized parts that didn't just show up overnight, and it wasn't the decision of somebody just waking up and saying, I'm deciding 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 today. It's the result of relentless propaganda and people inhabiting spheres that everything they're consuming is compounding, you know, the same viewpoints, and it's probably seizing on frustrations and pains and hurts that people have within them, but they've been used, weaponized, manipulated. So I think one of the big distinctions here is that that's not excusing the impact of a behavior, right? So that doesn't mean that you can't be super angry and have contempt for the consequences of people having these positions. You know, people believing that 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4, not honoring that, the way they vote, the policies they abide, obviously the public figures they abide, and what they're willing to, or what they consequently allow, is just total bullshit, of course. And acknowledging that there are complex reasons people are led to these places, with having contempt for the consequences of it, they're not mutually exclusive at all. And you can also say, I just choose not to engage these folks. I choose to just, not include them in my analysis. If I'm trying to drive change or be an activist or whatever, you can say, I choose not to engage these folks, or for them not to be included in my approach. That's fine. It's just the notion of reducing behaviors to, again, a simple idea of choice. I just don't think that that's accurate. And I don't think it helps any of us. I think in principle it's not correct, but even practically it doesn't help. And I do think sometimes that our impulse to lash out or to judge, again, I totally get it being like a righteous, understandable anger or frustration, but it also, there's something about, and I try to like model Thich Nhat Hanh here, and I think I've learned a lot about my own parts with this, but no matter how reprehensible somebody else's behavior, internalizing the notion of coming from a place of understanding and compassion and really believing that that's always the best way, while not excusing impacts of behavior, I think there's parts of within us that are also hurt and traumatized and in pain that prevent us from having our first instinct always towards compassion and understanding. In the organizing world, there's just it's so personal, and there's just so much personal trauma and pain, and after being away from it at least a little bit now, it's clear to me how much really, really good people, good moral people that want well for everyone are still maybe unwittingly trying to heal their own traumas and their past wounds through the work. Well, I mean, that's a whole separate discussion, but yeah, so I just wanted to make that point. A lot of it is about, I mean, for me, holding the multiple truths together. And the big one here, in the same vein of transformative justice or transformational justice, the idea that accountability for behavior and a path toward healing a behavior, or the idea that everyone can find salvation and change, and that we all have a role to play, or we all can have a role to play in that process, even the harmed or the affected or the victim. These things, I think, are very much true at the same time, and they have to be. But it's easy to say, oh, because you're having this position, you're saying that what's being done is okay, or that like it legitimizes the consequences or something like that. But I really think we like wholesale can reject that binary, and that we really can hold both at the same time. And I hope that's something that we move towards in general, not just for this particular issue. All right, peace out.